Welcome to the Games Tavern Happy Hour. I'm Reed, Warrior Streak, at Warrior Streak on Twitter, and we're excited to start the show off again today, this week with a whole bunch of new information and an interview. So, excitedly, hopefully you guys are checking us out. If this is your first time watching us, welcome. This is the show that talks about tabletop news, reviews, and interviews that you would be interested in. If you're a tabletop fan, this is the show to watch. So, getting started, big thank you to Tabletop Audio for giving us the music and letting us use it in our shows. We're a big supporter of theirs. If you can support them too, highly recommend it. They would be eternally grateful for your support. With over 230 new music tracks, ambiances, and a custom sound pad, they will make your games immersive and exciting online or in person. Check them out when you get a chance. Also, a big, huge thanks to our new sponsor, Overhead Games. The Overhead Games creates a amazing epic generator, character generator. You can make almost realistic, live-looking images of your characters. And thanks to their beautiful sponsorship, we are going to be able to give away some digital codes during our live play shows. So tune in tomorrow to the Velkin Weave on Wednesdays and watch to get a chance to win some of the digital codes to get access to some amazing packs of stuff. Later on, we'll be doing an interview with the creator later on this month, and we hope that you'll tune in for that as well. So moving forward, one last thing, check out our Discord when you get a chance. Our Discord is a great place to meet other gamers. Oh, thank you, Dirt Track Chick. To meet other gamers and find out what's going on with that. And you'll find that there's some exciting opportunities there as well. To meet other players, to meet other dungeon masters or game masters, to talk about the different games that you're interested in, to talk board games, to talk miniatures games, to talk about miniatures, cosplay, everything else. Discord is the place to go. That link is in chat. That is the Games Tavern Discord. So if you haven't checked it out, please do so. All right, so let's get started with the news, shall we? Okay, welcome to the Games Tavern Happy Hour News as we make it more news-like for you. Hopefully you enjoy this. So, moving to get started with the various things that are happening this week. There's a lot of really cool things going on. We'll start with this one. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything is now available for pre-order on D&D Beyond. Over 192 pages of content, 22 new subclasses. The Artificer now gets an official section in there, plus a new subclass. New spells, magic items, artifacts. Magic tattoos are now being shown, apparently. And that should be really cool in and of itself. Not only can you have some cool looks on your character, but it actually does something cool. So theoretically, anyone could get a magical tattoo that gives them an ability. And then also group patrons like Merfolk King. And then also now official expansive information on how to run sidekicks. If you need essentially extra hands in certain adventures, or if you're running a very small group and they could use some extra NPC support, sidekicks are a great way to have recurring NPCs be there and grow with the characters. Finally, an expanded Dungeon Master toolkit, plethora of puzzle guides, and a rework of the characters' racial traits, which we've talked about a number of times before. It's now official, and this is the book that will have it, to customize each character's origin story. And then finally, you'll get to learn how to run games in unnatural environments like magic storms. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely do so. We're going to put the link for that in chat there so people can see it. There we go. And, oh yeah, some of the people. Hey, Big Bearded Nerd, good to see you. And he'll be on an interview later on today. So good to see you actually watching the chat too. And Dirt Track Chick, yeah, the magic tattoos are amazing. Definitely check them out when you get a chance. And, you know, pre-order it as soon as you can if you want to get access to it as early as possible. So let's see here. What's next on the lineup? Oh, yeah. The Whiz Kids Tower, the tower. So, towers are always huge archetypical locations for adventurers. And wizards' towers, abandoned towers, they're a great way to offer depth in games as well as see something, that sticks up and it creates depth to a table if you're putting miniatures on it. So, WizKids created a new tower piece that's amazing. Whether you're exploring the ruins of a long-forgotten Sword Coast location or something ancient and scary, dare I say it, this will provide another sense of immersion. And this tower has got it all. It's modular in design. It's got easily removable parts. It's customizable, and not only that, it helps you with whatever you want to do in your games. So if you're looking for a tower that's easy to create, easy to build, easy to use, this is the one to do. I'm also going to link that in chat for you guys so you can see that yourself. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, I highly recommend it. It's a fantastic piece. All right, what's next after this? The Hero's Feast. Hero's Feast is a fantastic cookbook. I actually just got my copy, which is sitting over there, and we were going through it just the other day. There's over 80 recipes inspired by the magical world of Dungeons and Dragons in this book. You can't really beat it for all the different things in there. And the photos and the images are then off the charts. They make you hungry just looking at them. It's from the D&D experts behind the Dungeons and Dragons Art and Arcana book. The same people bring you a cookbook that invites you as a fantasy lover to enjoy the unique culinary creations and traditions of their favorite fictional cultures. So you can prepare dishes from this book that are delicate enough to dine like elves, as well as their drow cousins, or hardy enough to feast like a dwarven clan or an orcish horde, so they say. All 80 dishes within this book were created and developed by a professional chef. They are delicious. They're easy to prepare. I was looking through the book myself and I found quite a few. We're trying to decide which ones we may actually do on camera. And they're composed of, well, basically real food, wholesome ingredients readily found everywhere around you. If you haven't gotten a chance to check it out, I highly recommend it. It's now available on everywhere you buy your game books, easily found. Linked in chat for you guys to find. Okay. And then this is probably one of the most interesting things that's come across today for news. The Dungeons and Dragons TV show and movie. So Hasbro has admitted that they're developing a D&D TV series along with the upcoming movie. I don't know much about it yet, but from what we've also been able to tell is a live-action television show is actually coming. Brian Goldner, the CEO of Hasbro, announced earlier this week that the company very much intends to commit to this franchise on television, with the company's entertainment arm currently in the early stages of developing a live-action show based around the lore of Dungeons & Dragons. I couldn't believe it. I really want to thank the people who dropped this in our news section so that we could put it in. And whenever you get interesting news, that also makes an easy transition. Feel free to send it our way on our Discord or news@thegamestavern.com. If you bring us news, we'll definitely make sure that we go through it and provide stuff. It's extra helpful if you provide us links as well. There's the link so you can see the article yourself on Hasbro's Dungeons & Dragons television show. All right. Moving forward even more with more live talk. The Miniatures War Games section of our show today. So, what we talked about last week, we just wanted to bring up one more time because it's your absolute last week to get the new Chaplain Torrentis as a chaplain in Terminator armor. This miniature is spectacular. As was mentioned last show, what's interesting is it's a Terminator. It's not a Primaris Marine. Terminators are still amazing miniatures and still fantastic on your battlefield. Check them out when you get a chance. I think you'll like this miniature. It is just lavish with detail. And it looks like it'll be a real treat to paint. I look forward to trying to get a hold of a copy myself later on this week. So be sure and check that out. Next up, Morathi makes her return in Warhammer. What's really exciting about this is it continues to move forward the saga of Age of Sigmar. So the book is Broken Realms: Rise of the Shadow Queen. It's a 60-page book with new and world-changing narrative. It features 5 warring factions. The dread legions of chaos are ever present everywhere. And the opening installment of the Broken Realms just explodes out of the gates with this start. The core of the story behind this book is Morathi herself. She desires nothing less than a dark apotheosis to godhood through an incredibly powerful, not to mention dangerous, ritual that has been long in the making. Many of the key events that take place in this book revolve around the Shadow Queen's final maneuvers and preparations as she readies herself to perform the final dread rites. Will your forces be the ones that are going to help her move to godhood, or will your forces be the ones to fight, to break the ritual and prevent the vile ritual's completion? Please let us know on Discord. We would love to hear from you on that, and in the comments. Let's see here, and just to give you a little more on that, take a look also at the inside. You can see just all the different content that's in there, all sorts of information. It just hints at what's in there. We haven't been able to pull anything specific other than the table of contents, but if you're excited about Age of Sigmar, the miniatures that come with it, and of course the lore that happens with it, this is the opportunity to check it out. Dropping the link in chat. Also of note, that just came out, the new Death Watch, what do you want to call that, supplement has come out. It's very exciting. It's the new Crusade rules, Codex Supplement Death Watch, containing several different amazing Crusade rules. It's now available for pre-order on the website. The new Codex Supplement for Death Watch features some incredible Crusade rules that support the growth of your army, from a small skirmish force to a planet-shaking army of Xenos killers. Death Watch captains and watchmasters can now be given a new battle honor, Master of Specialisms. And each of those battle honors creates, it shows a mechanic that allows their specialist knowledge to be passed on to the different units that they're with. And you get to select that knowledge. So with knowledge against Xenos, Daemon, and other horrible foes, honing their strike capabilities of your army to a scalpel sharpness for surgical strikes. I see no problems with that from a Death Watch perspective, as well as from a narrative perspective. Sometimes they even added some things that for when your army doesn't have things go to plan for your Crusade force. Some of your units can end up, well, battle scarred. Codex Supplement Death Watch also includes some chapter-specific battle scars for your alien hunters, such as Xenophobic Führer, a battle honor that allows them to basically rage against the aliens when they come across, but they have to take certain actions as well. And then there's some special issue equipment in there as well that the Death Watch as usual get for doing the type of work that they do that's, well, very specialized in nature. So when you get a chance, check it out as well. That is also being linked in the chat for you now. All right, check it out when you get a chance. And then the next one up is probably one of my favorite things from today's news. Bugman is back. That's right. The Bugman miniature is now available. If you're not familiar with Bugman, the name Bugman was a byword for Dwarven Ale, pretty much of peerless quality. Barrels that bore the seal of the renowned brewmaster, like Bugman's Dark Choice, Bugman's Special Brew, and of course the legendary Bugman's XXXXXX, that's 6 X's, would change the hands for inordinately large amounts of coin. Chests full of gold for it. It was that delicious. And the fantastic model that shows the newest current features of Bugman come with 2 head options and, of course, a shoulder-mounted armored keg full of ale built into the armor. If if you're not familiar with Buckman, this is a great way to get started. It's just one of those great models that comes around every so often, and when it does, you got to pick it up and paint it. It's just, for the collector, this is one of the greatest models you can get a hold of. All right. That sums up our news for today. And remember, if you have news, please send us news@thegamestavern.com or on our Discord in the Games Tavern's Happy Hour channel. Sorry, had to make sure the channel. The Games Tavern Happy Hour channel. And pass it along, and we'll make sure that we share it with the world alike. So we're very excited to get new news. If you're a company with news, by all means, share your products. We're happy to take a look at it. All right. Now, with that, we're going to take a short 2-minute break, and we're going to transition to our interview with Dwight, also known as Big Bearded Nerd, and MTD Dwight. And you're going to find out some exciting things from him about, how he got into games, the games he likes to play, and, well, some of his time playing Call of Cthulhu as well. And we're excited about that. So be with us just a couple minutes. We're going to transition over to the interview, and we'll see you in just a few.
Cool.
All right. Well, welcome to the Games Tavern. With me today, I have Dwight Wade. He is kind of a well-known streamer. He streams on Call of Cthulhu and Illicit Tower of Horror on Mini Terrain Domain. And for D&D, he's done a number of different one-shots, but is probably best known for his work on All That Glitters, a campaign that takes place, I believe, in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage setting in the Undermountain. Okay.
Correct.
And you can see All That Glitters in various one-shots on Big Bearded Nerd, if I recall correctly. Yeah.
Right. Yep. Right. Actually, so the one-shots are on Big Bearded Nerd. Dungeon of the Mad Mage is on MTD. But yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Dwight, it's good talking to you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. I mean, we had you on a show not that long ago, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But thanks so much for coming out and spending some time with us. And where in the world are you right now?
Southwest Michigan, just a little bit south of Grand Rapids, in a small town nobody's ever heard of. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, awesome.
Actually, first Idle Skybook games, they already are. But I'm a Michigander at this point. I've been here over 30 years now. So
Over 30 years. Wow.
yeah,
That's a
yep.
long time.
So.
Is there anything unique to Michigan that you didn't see when you were living in Georgia?
Yeah, and actually I'll be honest, I was so set on leaving for so long that I just never really paid attention to Michigan, but in the last 10 years or so, I've really started to explore a lot more. The UP and the Upper Peninsula, for those of you that don't know, and just the coastlines here. It's just an outdoorsman's paradise here. People just don't realize how gorgeous things are here. There's thousands of miles of coastline, hiking, biking, whatever you want to do. It's just a great place if you like the outdoors.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a big outdoors guy myself, and I spent quite a bit of time in Chicago along Lake Michigan as well, and we'd go to the Michigan dunes in the summer and have a great time out there too. So.
Yep. Took my kids there for the first time a couple months ago, so yeah.
Oh, that's outstanding.
Good time.
Outstanding. Yeah. So, growing up in Michigan or in Georgia, when was it you became a gamer? And did you start with TTRPGs, or what was the journey to beginning?
So it all started like I'm sure it does with a lot of kids. I mean, I'm 43, so I'm tail end of Gen X at this point. And a lot of us grew up playing Atari and Nintendo and ColecoVision and all those things back in the day. That's really where gaming started. I'll be honest, I don't know how I fell into all this nerd stuff, because my dad is he's a history buff, and he didn't want anything to do with sci-fi or fantasy. I mean, he likes Star Wars, and that's about the extent of it. But he got me into Star Wars, and that was kind of like that freebie you get, that first hit you get. And it's just been a downhill for my brother and I ever since. I actually didn't get into TTRPGs until about 6 or 7 years ago. Really? Actually, growing up in Georgia, I came from a very conservative Baptist family, and satanic panic was a very real thing. I was not allowed to come anywhere near anything like this as a kid growing up. It's interesting because my parents have become a lot less conservative in that stuff. They're totally like, oh yeah, you play D&D, no big deal. But if I had told 20 years ago Mom that I was playing D&D, she would have probably taken me to church and tried to have me exercised, because it was just that kind of background. But it was always something I was interested in. And I actually met Jake from Mini Train Domain. We met through a running program. We're both bigger guys, and I lost a ton of weight. Jake lost a good bit of weight too through running, and we actually met in a running program in Grand Rapids. And he lives about 20 minutes from me, and we're both well south of the major town Grand Rapids here. So we would commute together to these training events on the weekends and just talk about nerd stuff. And I found out one day that he was into D&D, and I was like, oh, you got to let me play sometime. And he set up a game, and it's all in the rearview mirror now. So it's just,
How many years ago was that?
I want to say 7 years. It's 2013, so 7 years. Yep.
7 years ago. Wow.
Yep. Wow. So we tell everybody it's interesting because we met in this running program. I had run in it in 2012, and Jake ran in it in 2013. And it was this community program where they pulled people of all different fitness levels to run in this big. They have the largest 25K in the country here in Grand Rapids every year. And so we actually got professional training for like 6 months, and we're like, we got all the stuff from Brooks Running, which was kind of cool. So I came to the training events in 2013 when Jake was on the team, and there's actually a video of us when we first met. So like, how many people have video of the time they met their best friend? So it's kind of cool. So yeah.
And Jake is you actually introduced me to Jake not that long ago. He's a great guy to know. Really had an enjoyable conversation. I can't wait to talk to him again.
Yep. Yeah. So he's good people.
So your first foray into tabletop gaming really was with Jake, and it was D&D.
Yep. Yeah. 4E. I got the very tail end of 4E, and I was probably a year before they released 5. I'm guessing a year or two, somewhere in there. So yeah, I just kind of dipped my toe into 4, but just fell headlong into 5E. So yeah.
Okay. Yep. And then as 5E progressed, you then you had a lot of fun with it. I mean, what is it about Dungeons and Dragons in particular right now that is the most exciting thing for you?
For me, it's just the storytelling. I'm a fan of all genres, so I'm more of a sci-fi guy than I am a fantasy, but I like all of it. But for me, it's not so much about the setting or the combat as much as it is just about the storytelling. And the camaraderie. I just love to sit around a table with people, get to know them, hang out. I've reconnected with some old friends. I've made a ton of new friends. I actually, I tell people that D&D kind of helped save my life, because I was in this terrible job. I think I was fighting off depression, or maybe headlong into it. I'm not exactly sure. Wasn't really something I was acknowledging at the time. But I got involved after meeting Jake. I made some friends at work that we were like, hey, let's play D&D together. And through that group, I've made some very, very good friends. That a couple of them helped me get out of that crappy job and have just provided that support structure for me and each other over the last 5, 6, 7 years. Is we all get into our 30s and 40s and life happens, and so yeah, it's just that community and that game I credit with a lot of that, because it's really opened up a lot of doors and provided a lot of really great connections for me.
It's amazing how much we can learn about other people when we play games with them, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It really is. So.
I'm certain as you networked and found new friends that, was that something that you felt you got to find out more about them and they got to find out more about you as well? Or
Yeah. And it really, I don't know, it's odd, because I think the more you play with people, it just allows you to bond. You get to kind of see inside them a little bit. And it's really, again, as I've moved into my 40s and, I've got kids, this has been just a terrible year for everybody, pretty much around the horn. Even those that are having a good year are still having a bad year.
Yeah.
And to have those friends that, we've gotten to know each other, and that game just kind of allows us to be open. And then once you start being open, then it's easier to be more open, to the point where you're sharing things and able to talk about things that 10 years ago, I don't think I had anybody in my life that I could have talked about things the way I do with that group. So, yeah.
So it sounds like you grew to understand how important it is to be authentic and transparent as well.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yep. All right. Wow, that's intense, man.
Yeah.
That's very intense. and wonderful at the same time. What a journey.
Yeah.
And in 7 years too. Wow.
Yeah.
So as you played and you got to know Dungeons and Dragons, you had a great time. You've played different things, and I've seen some of the things you've done, and it's always fantastic to watch you play and run games as well. You obviously have tried a few other games now, because we're seeing you do some other games. What are the other games that you're? I mean, obviously we know that you're doing Call of Cthulhu. So when did you pick up Call of Cthulhu, for example, and what led you to that?
Yeah, Call of Cthulhu is something I've been playing for, I want to say, about 3 or 4 years now. A good buddy of mine, Ricky, who plays with us on Dungeons and Mad Mage on Mondays, I met him through work, and he's always played Call of Cthulhu Delta Green. I've always been, like, I'm kind of a dark-hearted guy. I love, like, grimdark, dark sci-fi horror. Alien is probably my second or third favorite movie of all time. I love that stuff. I've always have. So I've always been interested. I've been reading Lovecraft since I was, edgelord teenager. So, so I always loved that Lovecraftian horror. So when I found out, there's a tabletop game or TTRPG about this stuff, I was like, I'm in. But I didn't know anybody that played it until I met Ricky. But he's been running it for years. And so he invited me to come into his home game, and I've been playing with him for a few years now. So that's kind of what got me. And as soon as I started playing it, I was hooked. Yeah. What I really like about that system is just it seems a little bit freer to role play to me. It's less about mechanics and combat and things like that, and more about investigations and interplay between characters. And so I really like that role playing aspect of it. So yeah,
Call of Cthulhu does seem to have a pretty heavy role play element, and then I love their madness mechanic for the Chaosium version that they've put out. Highly recommend it, by the way. If you haven't tried it out, check it out by Chaosium. It's a very good system. And matter of fact, we just ran it. You were playing with Mac as the keeper of Arcane Horror. And quite a few other great people, both from our show and from another show. And did you see anything different in terms of how that gameplay went versus the gameplay you've played elsewhere? And because when you play with different groups, you kind of get some different play styles. And for Call of Cthulhu, since it's so role play heavy, I would assume that there might be some heavy variations you might see in that.
Yeah. So my first foray into was actually via Delta Green, which is, you know, kind of a mod of the original Call of Cthulhu, and it's more action based. So it's more about finding and fighting the monsters, whereas traditional Call of Cthulhu is more about investigating things that don't make sense and then going crazy in the process. The game that I'm running, so I played in a ton of Call of Cthulhu stuff that a lot of it run by other people. And then I played in a game this early this year, started in February, Highway of Blood on Mini Train Domain. It was actually a module published by Alex and a couple of he plays in our group, so a friend of ours and a couple of his friends that published this module that was kind of this 1970s Texas Chainsaw Massacre type feel, but based on the Call of Cthulhu rules. And it was more of you know, like a grindhouse. There wasn't much investigation. It was more about you fall into this bad situation, you got to survive. And then that led me to so that group we've started running regular, you know, short run series, you know, 3 to 5 sessions. And so when that game wrapped up, I volunteered to run a game, and the one that I've been running has been much more nightmare based. It's actually based on a recurring nightmare that I had as a kid, and then I kind of combined that with Silent Hill. I actually came up with the idea just by going through some writing prompts on a website, and I came up with this idea that was set in a high-rise apartment building. And I was like, okay, I like the way this prompt, it kind of triggered something, but how do I turn this into a story? And then I just brought in like basically this alternate dimension, kind of like Silent Hill, the old Silent Hill video games, and then just ran with this kind of nightmare, this recurring nightmare thing. So that's, again, not much investigation, but no real, I mean, I think we're on 4 or 5 sessions. We've had 2 fights. So it's not really fight based. It's, again, a little bit more survival, figure out what's going on and how do we get out of this building. What I really liked about the game's Tavern game that we played was it felt like old school Call of Cthulhu, like Lovecraft stories to me. It was much more investigation. It was, hey, something weird's going on here, and let's bring some people that have no idea what's going on into the story and have them slowly figure out and peel the layers back and figure out what's going on and probably go crazy in the process. So I really liked that. It's the first time I've played a game in that system that felt like the stories I grew up reading, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, and Matt can craft a story like nobody's business. He's got a lot of talent there, and he put some amazing work into it as well.
Yeah,
I know when he brought out the tablets at the end, I was really impressed.
Yep.
And then your character actually almost went mad. It was the surprise. It was the surprise because there was polls going out almost every show of like who they thought was going to go mad first, and then like suddenly, boom, you were in the lead. You know,
boy, I rolled like garbage. So it's one of those things.
I think you were one roll away from actual like full on complete
madness. Yeah.
It didn't matter how you were going to roll on the next roll. Pretty much the next roll was going to be it. I think because you had nothing left.
Nope.
Oh, my
it was
gosh.
bad.
Yeah.
I think I failed a sanity roll in every session. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
That's how it goes sometimes. So.
Absolutely. And that's kind of what makes the game so exciting is you get to role play that through as well.
Yeah.
And you mentioned some of the things that inspire your games. Now you had like ongoing nightmares, and you mentioned like some movies that you've seen. With some of the games that you're running now, what's inspiring them currently, if anything?
Oh, I mean, well, that's a good question. I don't know that I have anything that I'm running currently that's inspired by any movies, but I'd have to say that Alien's always in the background of my mind. That's one of my all-time favorite movies. I'll watch it multiple times a year. It's still just my kids watched it for the first time with me earlier this year. Probably a bad father for letting them do that because they're a little bit on the young side.
Yeah.
But you know, I watched it with them, and if they started to get too freaked out, I'd turn it off. But they handled it fine. But yeah, that one, just that slow creep, and that, you know, there's a little bit of jump scare, but it's more atmospheric, and that's really the way that I like. And I like the ensemble cast. And I read an article a couple of days ago that kind of highlighted why that movie was so good. That it had never really occurred to me until I read it, but that you had a group of people that were doing, for the most part, the right thing. They were doing their jobs. They were doing things the way they were supposed to, except for breaking quarantine protocol. But other than that, they were doing what they were supposed to do, and it still didn't matter. And usually when you get a horror movie, everybody's doing the dumbest things possible, and then they all die. And this, I really liked it because it was like they're doing what they're supposed to do. And it kind of clicked. I was like, okay, that's a really great point. I can't remember where I read that, but that's...
Yeah, there was a meme about it. It's like, all these people died because one person broke quarantine protocol.
Right.
Yep, don't be like this guy. Don't break quarantine protocol. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a great meme too.
Yep.
And actually, one of the things I found out about that was just how tall Sigourney Weaver actually is.
Yeah.
And she is a 6'2", I think.
Uh-huh.
She's very tall. Very tall. And you realize that when you see her standing next to some of the other cast members.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing about that particular movie, I think that made that movie very much almost great like a role-playing game, is there were a lot of scenes in there where the actors were brought into the room and they weren't told what was going to happen.
Right.
And they just said, react to what you see.
Right.
And then stuff happened, like the chest burster scene.
The chest burster, that's, yeah.
They had no idea what was coming. And then when that happened, you watch them go, oh, and it's all very real for them at that moment, And in many ways, that's great role play.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And that's actually the way I like to DM or GM or whatever you want to call it, is I have very little, it's kind of inverse to that, because I over the years, I've prepped less and less story. I just more outline what the world's going to look like, and I just kind of like throw this. It's like throwing chum in the water for sharks. If you've got the right table, then I just throw in chum and I'm letting them go. And it happened last night in my game where it was funny. People in the stream were commenting in chat that Dwight's just sitting there, and I'm like, yeah, because why would I interrupt this? They're going.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, this is easy for me, but it's less about, I think the best DMs, it's not about them, it's about the table. And if the table's going and they don't need to do anything, then I don't need to do anything. So yeah, I think if you find those times where you can just find those great role playing scenarios and then just run with them, that's the best gaming to me.
Absolutely. And as a matter of fact, that just happened to me yesterday evening. I was running occasionally we run games on our own Discord as well. And there's a group that I've kind of taken under my wing as the dungeon master, and I was running the thing. And they were having the time of their lives going through, not intentionally, but becoming very quickly a horror movie-esque situation. And they're handling it. They're having conversations. They're figuring things out based on the clues left behind. And man, are they having a good time. Right. And I just let it go. There were times I just sat back, worked a couple different things for ambient sound, and let them have their conversation. It was amazing when you can get a group that can do that. Yeah. So when you're playing now, you're playing in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage game, correct? I'm
DMing that one as of last night. So one I was playing in that game, and then our DM stepped away. So then I stepped into the DM when we run that group through Waterdeep Dragon Heist, and I played in that game, and then our DM stepped away, and we had planned to go all the way through Dungeon of the Mad Mage with this group. So I stepped in and took over the DM chairs as of last night. So yeah.
Okay, well that's very interesting. But you were a player before, right?
Right.
Okay, so with that character and possibly some of your other game characters that you've played for other systems as well, how do you get into the zone for developing your character? I mean, like, are you backstory heavy? Are you front story heavy? Or you just kind of figure out what you want to do and have a story that comes out as it comes out, or if it comes out, or what do you do? I mean, like, there's something else altogether.
Yeah, I like to write a backstory just because it helps me get into the character for those first couple of sessions, but I never really tie myself to that backstory too much, because sometimes things come out, and this is the way I write too. When I write short stories or whatever, I do a little bit of outlining, but I just kind of write wherever it goes, and I like to let my characters go wherever the heck they go. So the character that I played in Waterdeep, his name was Bevan. He's a rogue mastermind, and we're doing a heist style story, and so he was this underworld character that had this background with a daddy hated and all this stuff. But that was just more like flavor. And then you work with your DM and your players to kind of figure out who this character is. And when I started off, I kind of envisioned him as this real kind of brooding, doesn't say much, kind of temperamental, dark figure. But as we played and these characters started to intertwine, I was like, that doesn't work with this table. I mean, it was a little bit more loose table, and if I was just going to be quiet and brooding the whole time, I wasn't going to get to play much. And so but you find a way to loosen the character up and make it make more sense. And he kind of went through a little bit of a character arc where he was this kind of a jerk at the beginning, and by the time the story was over, he was one of the crew. So it's kind of fun to let that happen as it does, but try not to stay too close to anything and let that story develop.
I find in an ensemble game like Dungeons and Dragons or Call of Cthulhu and any number of hosts of other ones, playing the brooding loner gets old real fast.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, you can only be Batman for so long,
Right.
And it always works better when you're with that ensemble situation. Right. Do you draw on real life or movies or other things when you develop your characters as well, or?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit of both. So it's, I played a character one time, probably one of my favorite characters that I played. I don't know if you've ever watched, what's the name of the show? Future Man on Hulu.
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
So there's this character on there. He's this totally ridiculous character. They travel back in time to the 80s. He's this like post-apocalyptic guy that travels back in time, and he finds Corey Wolf, the guy that sings the Sunglasses at Night song from the 80s. Just like becomes totally obsessed with him. He's just an idiot character, but he's just talks like this the whole time, and he's super over the top. And so I played in a game where these players were in this post-apocalyptic world, and so I modeled my character after him, and it was just super fun to play that. And it was totally blatant. It was right around the time the show was popular, and I was like, I don't even care. I just think this character is fun, and I'm going to play him for this particular show. Other times I'll just try and pick pieces from here or there. And a lot of times, so like Bevan was more a lot of my character traits. It's when I'm new to a situation, I tend to just kind of slide in quietly. I'll talk forever once I'm comfortable. But I'm kind of like that introverted extrovert where when it's a new situation, I usually don't jump out and say stuff. I kind of like to ease my way in. And early on, especially when I was streaming, that's the type of character that I played. They were kind of quiet, and I didn't like to make decisions because I didn't want to offend anybody or step on anybody's toes. And so I just kind of sat in the background and went with the flow. And then the last few years, I've tried to find a character that fits more than, sometimes that's the right character to play with the group. Sometimes a little bit more outgoing. Sometimes you want to be that kind of that leader. But I try to be careful with that, because one of the things that turns me off more than anything is when you get that character or that player that kind of takes over the game, that makes all the decisions, and like that's not fun to me. So I don't want to be that character. But yeah, so you just try to find what fits as you go.
Yeah. Is there a character you've always wanted to play but haven't had a chance to play yet?
Yeah. Well, I'll say I've played him, but he didn't last. The game didn't last very long, and I've always wanted to go back to him. He was again, speaking to my love of Lovecraftian horror. He was the first character I ever made in a 5e. He was a half drow warlock named Yewin Cyanidel. He was a great Old One patron, and he followed Nyarlathotep. And he was, my goal for this campaign was to have him we were originally supposed to be an epic campaign 1 to level 20, and I was going to have him progressively go mad through the whole campaign. And I think we got to like level 3, and that campaign died off. And I've gotten to use him for a one shot or two here and there since then, but I've never really gotten to play that character the way that I wanted to play that character. so he's never really fit in any campaigns. I'm actually playing. I got the Baldur's Gate 3 early access, and he was the first character that I created in that game. I was like, I'm going to play him somewhere. So,
by golly, he's going to show up somewhere.
Exactly.
Were you able to actually create him using the character creator and stuff?
Yeah,
like that?
pretty close to how I envisioned him. So yeah, it's actually pretty cool. And I'm going to guess that when they get through early access and release the full game, from what I've read about it, they're going to have enough options that I'll probably be able to recreate exactly as I kind of envisioned, or really close to how I envisioned him. So
okay, outstanding. I'd kind of like to circle back to something you mentioned as you were discussing, playing the different games and stuff you were talking about as you started streaming. So how long ago did you start streaming, and what was the draw for you, or what made you say, hey, you know what, I want to play games on camera and have everyone else stare at my game? And
yeah, I'll blame Jake for that again over at Mini Train Domain. So he's been streaming back before it really became a real thing. So shortly after, I think Mini Train Domain's been around for 6 years now. So a year after he and I met was when he really started streaming. It started off, he's a fantastic craftsman. He likes to build terrain, dice towers, things like that. And he started off doing YouTube videos for that, but then very quickly started doing streaming games through Google Hangouts. And anybody that's been around for like the time probably remembers playing on Google Hangouts. It was terrible. Connections were always awful. You couldn't hear anybody. But that's how long he's been streaming. I streamed a couple of games with him back then, but I live out in the country and my internet connection was garbage and I just could never stay connected. So it was probably, I've been streaming with him off and on since he started. It was really about 2 years ago when we started this Waterdeep Dragon Heist game. That's the first long-term campaign I was ever a part of. I was more just doing one-shots with various people, a couple of online conventions, that kind of thing. But we started this Waterdeep Dragon Heist right around the time that we started that. I finally upgraded to a decent internet connection, hardwired into my computer, built a decent computer so I have a stable connection. And then once I realized, okay, I can actually do this, then I was like, okay, I want to do this. I want to do this too, not just play with Jake and his group, but I want to do something of my own. And I've been painting minis for years, off and on. And about 3-4 years ago, I kind of got back into it semi-seriously again. And then a couple years ago, when I was like, okay, I have the tools to actually stream this, I started thinking about streaming it. But then every time I'd get the nerve up to start my own stuff, that's when I'd get that like bad bout of imposter syndrome.
Oh yeah.
And I'd be like, no, nobody wants to watch me do this. So it was really just earlier this year that I finally decided I don't care. I've had this real weird, like I turned 43 last month or 2 months ago in September. But this whole year I've had this kind of interesting, like, I don't give crap anymore. I'm going to do what I want to do. So I decided I'm going to do this. I have fun. It's interesting. I enjoy it. Playing games, painting minis, it's all kind of zen for me. It's calming. It helps me when I'm having a bad day. So it's something that I enjoy when I'm having a good day. So I was like, I'm just going to do it. And Jake's been helping me learn how to do the production stuff. So I learned how to use, Photoshop, create overlays, all that kind of stuff. And once I started doing it, I was like, okay, this is kind of enjoyable. And a couple of people show up here and there for my painting streams. And and I was like, cool, this is fun. Now I want to run some games. And then back in May, Jake and I, we produce Jasper's Game Week, which is a big week-long, 5-day-long charity stream to support Jasper's Game Day. And we got done with that, and Jake actually asked me to officially become part of the Mini Train Domain group organization. It's just basically it was him, and he's like, hey, I've known you for a while. I could use you. You could use some help. I think we could do a lot of cool stuff together. It's like, excellent. So he's been teaching me how to do a lot of this stuff. And then we kind of settled on, he runs D&D on his channel. I love D&D, but I'm more of the other stuff kind of guy. I love Call of Cthulhu. I love Star Wars. There's a lot of Mecha Hack, which is an indie developed system. that runs mechs. Those are the kinds of games that I want to run on my channel. So that's kind of what we've settled on, is D&D is mostly going to be what he does on his channel. And then we're going to move a lot of the other stuff onto my channel, a lot of one shots, a lot of short run series, that kind of thing. And then eventually we want to do a podcast, some other stuff like that. But yeah, so that's kind of where it's like, I'm just going to do it. And if nobody comes, cool, that's fine. I'm going to have fun doing it anyways. And if people show up, awesome. I would love it. My goal, like I set a goal for myself, I would love to be able to support my habit with my habit, or my hobby with my hobby. So if I can make a couple of bucks and, sell some mini commissions and bring in some money on Twitch as an affiliate, and just pay for computer upgrades and mini paints and all that kind of stuff, it's awesome. So yeah.
Isn't it great when you can hit that point and just say, I'm not worried what other people think.
Yep.
I just want to have fun and do my thing. And, as long as you're not hurting anyone else, find your bliss, right?
Right. Exactly. So,
and, and yet there's so many people who self-limit with that stuff. And all they have to do is really question, like, what are they really limiting, I guess, and have that epiphany that they can do it. And as long as they're not hurting anyone, no one good wants to see you fail.
Right.
At anything,
exactly.
Anyone who comes in hoping that you fail, they're a horrible troglodyte of a human being, and frankly, they're not the target audience anyway. So
exactly. I have that kind of reminds me of I interviewed, I want to say 6-7 years ago. I was writing. I used to do some freelance blogging, and I interviewed Hugh Howey, who is an author, sci-fi author. And I just reached out to him one time and I was like, hey, I write for this website, and I'm starting out. He was actually the one, I read one of his first books, and I was like, man, that was so great. And he has this kind of cool story of, he was a struggling author and got tired of publishing things through other publishers, so he just self-published and became a millionaire. So it's this kind of cool story of how he set off on his own and did it. But he writes stuff that I love to read, and so he's kind of inspired me to start writing. And that was about 10 years ago or so. And so 8-9 years ago, I reached out to him when I was writing for this website and said, hey, could I interview you? And he's like, yeah, sure. So we we corresponded by email. I asked him some questions for this website that nobody had ever heard of, that I was writing for no money. This is back when it was there was a lot of like, hey, you can write for us and you'll get exposure kind of stuff. And I fell into that trap big time. Yeah. But yeah, so I reached out to him, and I can't remember the exact quote, but I had it on my email signature for a long time. But one of my ending questions was, what advice would you give to struggling writers? And he says, there's so many good stories out there. It'd be a shame to let them go to waste. If you think you have something to say, then take a shot at getting it out there. And that's kind of a paraphrasing of what he said. I think I got it mostly right. But like I said, I had that's been like an inspirational quote or thought for me for ever since then. It's like, why not? What's the worst they can say is no. I mean, yeah, you're going to get trolls that maybe say something stupid, but I'm a pale redheaded kid that's been heavy all my life. You can't get under my skin. So try to troll me. That's fine. You waste your time. I'm going to, when I can get past it, when I get past myself, I'm going to throw it out there. And if it falls flat, oh, well, I'll just try again. I'm having fun. So
did you, you bring that up. Did you have a lot of challenges growing up that way? And did you have an epiphany at some point saying, hey, I can just be me and that's perfectly okay? And
you look back on it at 43, looking back on it, and I never really acknowledged it as a kid growing up. But I can look back on it now and see that it was absolutely there. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like I had some terrible childhood. I didn't. I grew up in a comfortable middle class Midwestern family that was extremely supportive, and I think that's really where a lot of it came from. Is I've always felt confident in myself because my parents kind of instilled that in me from a young age. They were always supportive of me and whatever I wanted to do. And my dad has always been kind of he calls himself a realist. I call him a pessimist, whatever you want to call it. But he was always there kind of to bring you back down a little bit. And maybe, but always supportive of us growing up.
Yeah.
But there was always that, like, you know, um, I got picked on when I was a kid because I had red hair. I got picked on when I moved to Michigan because I had an accent from Georgia. You know, just kids can be mean, and if they find something to pick on you about, they do. And I had a run when I was in, you know, like 3rd through 7th grade or so, where that was a lot of what I dealt with, and I just got used to it. And I was like, I'm not going to let you, you know, I'm just going to move on. If you're not worth my time, then I'm going to move on. I kind of learned that early. But I think a lot of those insecurities that came along with that just kind of buried themselves and limited me for a long time. I was real heavy when I was in my like 20s and early 30s, and I worked a crappy job. I wasn't happy with anything. And I think I just let a lot of that kind of burrow in there and just tell me I wasn't as good as I thought I could be. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do in my early 20s that just, for whatever reason, didn't work out. And I just let that kind of, again, you're not that good, you know, that kind of festered for several years. And I got out of a couple of bad situations. I found a good job, found a good set of friends, and it was like, oh, okay, you know, that's not me. That, you know, that's just a few years of my life when all that was going on. And slowly I just got a little more comfortable with it. I still fight with that stuff too, but as I get older, I'm just like, I don't care. I'm going to do it.
Is there, you know, you bring up some great points, and, you know, there's some opportunity there, I think. For anyone watching right now, what would be some advice you would give to people who were going through a similar thing to what you were going through? And, you know, some advice that you hope, you know, they can take in and, you know, internalize and grow from it maybe even faster than you did.
I think the biggest advice I can give to anybody, a large part of where mine came from was career. I was young. I got married very young, and we wanted to start a family. And so and this came from you know, baby boomer parents. Everything was about, you got to have that house, you got to have that health insurance, you got to have all these things so that you're secure. And so I was always terrified to make changes because I had a good job. It paid well. It provided for the family. I hated everything about it. But I kept holding on because I felt like, oh, I put my time in and I'll be rewarded and I'll get where I want to go. It didn't happen. If the biggest thing that I've learned, and as I've moved on to other parts of my career, my professional career, the one thing I tell anybody that I'm mentoring is, do not think your company will be loyal to you. The company is loyal to the company. Yeah, there's the occasional company that might be different, but they're the exception to the rule. Your only accountability is to you and your family. So don't think you need to stick around and continue doing this because of loyalty to a company. Go do what you need to do. There were so many chances. I look back on it, there were so many chances I had to get out and go do something else that I think I would have been a lot happier with, that I didn't because I was afraid of the change and the risk and things like that. So don't be afraid to take those risks. It'll be okay. My dad's a great example of that. Late in life, he decided to chase what he wanted to do. He wanted to work for himself. He cashed in his 401k and he moved to where he wanted to move. He started his own business and it fell flat on his face after like 2 years. And you know what? He's still okay. And he's going to retire in a couple of years. He was able to pull himself back up and, you know, I mean, this all happened in his 50s. Like he decided to do this pretty late in life, but was able to kind of rebound from that. So you can take a chance and go do what you need to do, what you want to do. Don't let those things hold you back. I wish I had known that in my mid to late 20s versus learning it in my late 30s and early 40s. So
wow, that's awesome to hear. Yeah. Awesome to hear. Well, kind of transitioning now to the future a little bit. What are some current projects that you're looking at or about to embark on that you're kind of excited about?
Yeah. So Jake and I have a few different things that we're looking forward to. We're talking about hopefully starting a podcast, maybe first of the year or maybe a little bit before that. Again, just sitting down and talking about the stuff we love to talk about. So And then we've got some new projects coming up. Actually, on Big Bearded Nerd Twitch channel, we're going to be running an anthology series where we're going to bring in a new cast every week, or a new group every week, a new game master, new players. We want to do like an 8 to 10 run season of this, where we bring people in, especially if they're new to that MTD universe, and tell a new story every week that's sci-fi horror. That's going to be the setting of it. So that's hopefully first of the year we're going to run that.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I am doing NaNoWriMo again this year, National Novel Writing Month.
Mm-hmm.
I am trying to finally write the book that I started 8 years ago. I've done this a few times. I've actually won, I think twice now, where I've written a book in a month. Neither one of them are any good, but it's a good exercise to just get it there and write every day. But I've had this book I've been working on. It's a story I really want to tell. I've been working on it for 8 years. It never quite felt right to me until recently. So I'm trying to actually sit down and bang those pages out and get that first draft done, so I can then hopefully move on to editing. And I would love to be able to, at the very least, self-publish that someday.
A bad story written is a good story edited.
Right.
Potentially.
Right. So yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Is there anything else?
That's really all right now.
Mm-hmm.
Except for I'll just always plug Jasper's Game Week. We're already starting to plan that for next year. That'll be May. I think it starts May 2nd next
Mm-hmm.
year. Right when there's that first weekend-ish in May, I know. We're starting to plan that. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff happening around that. So Jake and I, again, Mini Train Domain, we produce that, working with Jasper's Game Day, and then all the sponsors and partners and stuff. So yeah, look for that too.
Excellent. Where can people find you on social media, Dwight?
Yeah, Twitter, Big Bearded Nerd on Twitter, big_bearded_nerd on Instagram. If you want to come check out pictures, I don't know why you'd want to do that though. It's mostly just me riding my bike places. And then, so yeah, that's social media. Twitch, Big Bearded Nerd 21 is the channel where you can find me, and then Big Bearded Nerd on YouTube, which is where I throw all my VOD for the Twitch stuff. So,
and you are indeed a big bearded nerd.
Yeah.
Yes. There is no
Yeah,
doubt.
the plan is to just keep the beard big, but there'll be less of me. So I'll still be tall, but I want to be less big, but we'll keep the beard large to keep the name right.
Big, muscular, bearded nerd.
There we go. I'll take that.
Doesn't really ring.
Doesn't ring.
Well, we can work on it. We'll workshop it later. You and
exactly.
Me. We'll workshop it.
Sounds good to me.
I think one of the things I'd like to mention is you and I were talking painting the other day. I think we talked about a challenge of a possible paint off.
Yeah.
Not that either of us are really trying to, because somebody went, "Oh, I'm betting on the winners." Like, everyone's a winner when your miniatures get painted.
Right, exactly.
But we would love to have you on as a guest on one of our shows for painting sometime. Is that something you'd be interested in doing?
Yeah, absolutely. I love to paint.
Love to have you.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Again, I love to do it. It's fun. I think I've gotten to the point where I would say I'm pretty decent at it.
What's your current project that you love the most right now? I mean, what's the miniature you love the most right now?
I've got him right here. I keep him on my desk here because one, Star Wars is the best. But I did this Darth Vader.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, this was one that was a challenge. I tried my hand at object source lighting with the lightsaber, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, so that's probably my favorite right now. It's fun to paint. It's fun to just get in there. When I started to realize that, I actually know what I'm doing versus just, dinking around with it. That's when it really got to be fun versus just relaxing for me.
Yeah.
And to like push myself and try and do things and be willing to screw things up. I actually recently just posted, I do commissions if anybody's ever interested in that. So, again, if I can make a buck here or there to help pay for things, cool. If not, also cool. I'll keep painting the giant drawer full of unpainted minis that I have. So
you keep that drawer filled, my friend.
Oh
keep
man,
it
it's so I have so many. I have two friends that have given me, they're like, I'm not any good at this. Here, have all my minis. Okay. And then I got a bunch from Aaron at Jasper's in May. It's just a thank you for helping with that. So I have like this giant Amazon box full of unpainted minis that were gifted to me, plus all of the ones that I bought, which, you know, that's another problem where it's
we won't even get into my, we just won't talk about
so many.
Yeah.
But you're not a mini painter if you don't have a bunch of unpainted minis. So
it's
just
that's how you stay alive. That's how you stay alive. As long as you have
So,
unpainted minis, you can't die. That's that's the story. So if you finish them, you're done, man. You're done.
Yep.
Well, Dwight, I've had such a great time with you. I can't wait to have you back on sometime. The Call of Cthulhu show rocked because of your detective PI character that was on there. And we can't wait to see you in some other things on your own shows. Yeah. And, well, thank you once again for being on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. And vice versa. We'd love to have you over on the mini train domain stuff. But thanks for having
Just contact me. I'm always available for you guys.
Thanks for having me on.
All righty. Take care, guys. And when we come back, we'll be probably going through the ending, and who knows what else we'll be doing, because I'm going to edit most of this section out here at the end. So I just want you to know that we love you all. Okay, and going to stop recording. I'll probably